Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me fine? My name is John Hixson. I work with IX Systems, and I'm going to talk to you guys about FreeNAS Plugins. We are the corporate sponsors for FreeNAS and PCBSD, and we also contribute a lot to FreeBSD. You might have heard of us.
I think there's a FreeNAS CD in the sponsor stack, right?
Oh, I don't know, is there? All right, I guess you got some FreeNAS swag in your bag too. You should try it out. I recommend it. So, my motivation here for giving this talk is I would like to gain interest. I would like for people to gain interest in FreeNAS and bring on board more developers. We're a small team. We occasionally receive, the odd patch and whatnot, but for the most part, there's just a few of us that are working on FreeNAS full time. And by explaining how the plugin architecture works, I would like for more people to understand how it works, and in doing so, you guys can possibly expand the number of available plugins. Right now we have 3 reference plugins, and then we have a couple of people that have made some, but the plugin architecture, it's been available for about a year now, I'd say, and not many people have stepped up to make plugins. So I'm hoping that this is going to change over the course of time. So, FreeNAS, it is a NAS. And that's what it does. It does one thing and one thing well, and that is storage. Once you get beyond that, things get difficult. If you want to modify FreeNAS, your mileage may vary. It takes a bit of understanding to really get anywhere with FreeNAS. If you want to modify it in any fashion, you have to understand the way it works. You have to know some programming. If you attempt, anything, if you think you're going to install software on FreeNAS and it worked for you, you got something else coming to you. So, the current options for installing software are rather limited, and as I just said, you need to know a few things. You can't just SSH in and compile things, because 1, there's no compiler, and 2, once you reboot, it's probably not going to be there anymore. So, the current options that are available without plugins are you can use the management tools, the package management tools, which we're going to see in a minute why that's not going to work. You can hack the build system. That works, but unless you're, funny in the head, you may not want to do that. And then you can also use a FreeBSD system and just copy the binaries over. These are all options, and you can get them to work, but again, your mileage may vary. So the problem with using the package management tools are etc and var, they're created at boot time, they're memory disks, and all the files get populated from /conf/base, var, etc, and it's copied at boot, and then your root partition is read-only. You can, of course, mount it writable, but most FreeNAS users don't even know where to begin to do that, as simple as it is. The package tools record files to, /var, db, ports and packages, depending on what you're doing. And as soon as you reboot, every single change that you think you may have made won't exist anymore. It's going to be gone. It gets wiped out. And if you figure out how to copy files over, modify files, if you understand NanoBSD and you use the conf base files and you modify them, you got everything all figured out, then you upgrade FreeNAS, and once again, everything is gone. So the build system, it works, but it reminds me a lot of sysinstall. It's kind of archaic, and it's one of those things that it does what we need it to do. It's worked over time and been added to over time, and it's turned into a mess. We're going to change that, by the way. So also, to work on the build system, you need a FreeBSD box with all the development tools, a compiler, Python, and everything else we use. And while you guys are probably all BSD hackers, most of the people that use FreeNAS are not. You need to understand NanoBSD, and again, that's a subset of FreeBSD, and it's a little odd. Another learning curve. You need to understand how the build system works. That's another learning curve. And which files to edit, where they're located. They're all over the place. So it's a big learning curve, but it's doable. I mean, if you know how to do it, you're a programmer, you go in there, you figure it out, you're good. You can make FreeNAS do whatever you want this way. But then that's just for you and not everybody else. Now, as far as copying binaries over from FreeBSD, again, you need access to a FreeBSD system. The majority of FreeNAS users don't have that. And you need to be running the same version for the most part. It's not a very good idea. And again, the same problem exists with if you're using package management tools. If you reboot, most of it's going to disappear. Or even if you have your binaries still there, your configuration files will most certainly disappear once you reboot. And once you upgrade again, it's all moot anyway because it's gone. The only thing that sticks around when you upgrade is the database and your data sets that you created. Everything else is gone. So we solved this by adding the plugins architecture. And like a lot of FreeNAS, we like to borrow from PCBSD because PCBSD's done all this neat, user-friendly, one-click stuff. So PBIs, they're self-contained, they're great, they're easy. You install it and it looks like it's part of the system. It just magically shows, a menu and you can configure it. You can reboot and it'll still be there. You can upgrade, it'll still be there. And all you got to do is upload the plugin and it's installed. It's really simple once it's configured. So FreeNAS runs on FreeBSD 8.3 at the moment. And the PBI format that we chose was the 9 format because it's changed a lot of things and it's better and it's more FreeBSD friendly. All you have to do to install a plugin is you go to the web interface and you click upload plugin and it uploads. Everything about the PBI is saved in the database. When the PBI is installed, It's installed inside of a jail, so it's not going to trash your system if you have some kind of PBI fault or malware. You know, it's going to trash a jail. And all the RPC requests, all the IPC requests to the plugin are done via RPC, and it's signed using OAuth. In order to use plugins and install PBIs, you need a jail, because that's what plugins run in. So the first part of installing a PBI, before you can ever install one, you need to also download and install the FreeNAS Plugins jail. And it's just another PBI. However, all it is a regular FreeBSD jail, and it's packaged using PBI. The plugin jail, when you install it, you have to configure it to have a data set, and the reason for that is so that it can persist across reboots and upgrades. The plugin jail that we provide, it's a full-fledged FreeBSD system. It's just an install world, you know. Whereas the FreeNAS-based system is rather limited. It only has the tools that we need. The jail itself has a compiler and Python and various packages in it. It's a FreeBSD system. And you can use it to do other development, like plugin development, for instance. Configuring the jails, a straightforward process. You configure the path where the jail is located. You configure a path where the plugins are stored, and you give it an IP address, and that's it. The plugins jail, as well as all of the plugins, are available from SourceForge. They're located in the same place that FreeNAS is, under subdirectories for your architecture. You can also build the plugins yourself, or the plugins jail yourself, if you have a FreeBSD system and an understanding of how to use Subversion and run a simple command. You can also make your own. You could just, if you have a FreeBSD jail or jails available, you can just run PBI create and make it. Starting the plugins jail is easy. You click on and it starts. Now you have a jail. Installing a plugin, again, it's very simple. You click one button, it installs. You do it through the FreeNAS web interface. Everything's recorded in the database about the PBI. The OAuth information is generated and stored in the database, as well as the plugin directory. Plugins, since we're dealing with the web interface here, they write out a configuration to the Nginx config file, and all that does is it tells Nginx is how to communicate with the plugin. And the plugin, we'll get into that in a minute. It's a fast CGI server that controls the interface. The plugin control script gets started in the jail, and then the nav tree, it requests from the plugin how the menu's going to be displayed and the icon to use, and then it just displays for you. So once you install it, it appears and it's part of the system, and you have a GUI interface for the plugin. So, how they work from 50,000 feet. You click the plugin icon, and that will send a request. Well, actually, the first thing is Django matches the URL, and Django sees the URL, and it says, okay, I'm going to send this to the FastCGI plugin server. And the plugin FastCGI server is just it's what we call a control script, and it just sits there. It's just an IP address and a port that is on the FastCGI server, and it listens for requests inside of the jail and answers Django responses, and then it sends it back whatever request you happen to make, which is start, stop, restart, and edit the plugin information, as well as a status check and the menu option, how it's to be displayed, and the icon. So the FastCGI server determines how you're calling it, and it dispatches accordingly, and then the method that is called, everything's returned, it uses JSON, so you're getting back JSON, and then the FreeNAS GUI displays it. This also means you can run a plugin anywhere, to be honest. It doesn't even have to be on FreeNAS. If you have another box, as long as it's got a FastCGI server on an IP and a port, and you have the correct OAuth credentials, you can run your plugin anywhere. How do you make a plugin from 50,000 feet? You create a plugin directory, you create resource and script directories, and this is basically the process for creating a PBI on PCBSD. So the first thing that you probably want to do is go read the PCBSD 9 documentation for creating PBIs, because that's really all there is to it for the most part. So you edit your PBI comp file, which is basically just adding the port and any port dependencies, and there is it's the script directory, and you have pre and post scripts, and these are used for pre and post build and pre and post install. I haven't had a whole lot of need for the build, but for the install, most of the time you need it for adding users, or we use Django for a lot of this, so we're like initializing the database and other things like that. Then you run PBI make port, and at this point you've got a PBI. So you take this PBI, which is empty, there's no interface at this point, it's just an empty PBI, but it's installable on FreeNAS. You upload it, you install it, and now it's installed. And so, and by the way, this is just the process that we used. You can do this any way you want. I mean, if you can knock this out on your FreeBSD box, it's entirely possible, but this allows you to see your progress as you're going along. So the jail is up and running, your PBI is installed, you're going to SSH in, and you're going to go into the jail, and now you're going to create your control script, which is called control. It has to be in the plugin directory, which is the same directory that all PBIs are always installed, which is user PBI plugin name architecture. And the control script only takes 3 arguments, and those are the action verb, which I list the options that all of them should understand. You can add more if you want, but the requirement for FreeNAS is that those 4 are implemented. The IP address that it's bound to, and the port that it's listening on. And those those are passed along to it. You don't specify those yourself. It just has to understand those as arguments and be able to bind and listen on those. The purpose of the control script is to be able to start and stop the fast CGI server on the IP address and port that are given to it. It is to start and stop any external resources the plugin needs. And by resources, basically, that's the interface to the plugin. You can implement this in anything that you'd like. So if you manage to get Visual Basic to run inside of a FreeBSD jail, feel absolutely free to implement your plugin in Visual Basic inside of a FreeBSD jail. The only requirements are that it understands HTTP and that JSON results get returned. There's a little more, there's a little more as far as the format goes that the JSON needs to be returning, but that's cake. So once you have your control script finished, the plugin's mostly complete. And by having the control script complete, I'm also referring to any interface that you've implemented that's controlled by the control script. So when you tell the control script to start, it's going to bind to the IP address and port, and it's also going to start, for instance, Apache, Django, however you decide that your plugin is implemented. All that matters is that it returns what FreeNAS requests from it so that it can be rendered in the FreeNAS interface. And you're going to copy all of that over into the resources directory of your PBI that we started with. And any of the pre-post scripts that I talked about before, those need to be copied over as well. And once again, you will run PBI make port, and that's going to create your PBI. And now you have a finished plugin that you can distribute and other people can install on FreeNAS. The details are in the paper. So, FreeNAS comes with 3 plugins. And we didn't even really want to do that, but we also wanted to provide examples for the community to see how plugins can be implemented. And we also wanted to give back or provide functionality that used to be in FreeNAS 7 that wasn't there in 8 when we took over the project. So the plugins that we provide are Transmission, Mini DLNA, and Firefly. And as you can see, that's BitTorrent, DLNA, and iTunes. Let's see. So how do these things look? Not very pretty.
One quick question. All your jails will have a different IP address on the wire?
Yes. So the question was, all of the jails will have a different IP address. And that's true. Keep in mind some of this will all apply to newer versions of FreeNAS, but we're also changing it a little bit to where right now we're limited to 1 plugin jail. You can have multiple jails, but just not for plugins. Plugins are only 1 jail. That's changing real soon, so keep some of that in mind. And also at that point, you don't have to have an IP address for the jail, but, well, if you want your plugins to work, then you do. All right, I'm going to pull up a shell here, and I'm going to show you guys how these work, if I can get this to work. Hello. Okay. Any plugin in particular? You guys want to see? Because if not, I'm just going to show you transmission. You would pick that, wouldn't you? Because I think that's in PHP. Damn you. Many DLNA? All right, so if you, this is just for the build system. This isn't actually necessary when building a plugin. This is just part of our build system, and this is just a NanoBSD file. NanoBSD is used just to build FreeBSD, so we do some hackery here to make a plugin appear as a FreeBSD compile. It's kind of ugly, but it works. Here, I'll get down to the bottom here. This is the actual part that builds the plugin. Here we go. So there's your PBI make port command for creating a plugin inside of NanoBSD. If you wanted to add a plugin to the build system, this is how you would do it. You can just copy one of these and change some names around, and it'll build the plugin for you. So here's the PBI comp file, the resources directory, and the scripts directory. Does that work? And a PBI comp file. It looks like this. Program name is mini-DLNA. Here's the URL for it. The author, mini-DLNA is the author. We're just using the default icon. You can make your own icon, but we're programmers. We don't know how to do that. This is the port relative to your ports directory. And then here are the options that you can pass to the port build. And you can also tell it to build other ports that it relies on. So, as I said, this particular port is implemented in PHP. So here's all your PHP stuff, as well as the OAuth. I think that's OAuth for PHP, I'm not sure. This is auto build stuff that, I don't know, Chris can tell you about that. And your scripts here, pre and post scripts, these are probably mostly empty except for the install one. Let me see here. Okay, so post install, oh, yeah, we do a few things here. So here's an example of a good post install script because it's creating some directories, changing some permissions. Good stuff. Let's see. Oh, we have a host port make one. I'm not sure what this is doing here. Oh, it looks like we're just doing cleanup in this one. So the resources directory, this is really where everything takes place. This is where the bulk of your interface for the plugin is. So let's look at the control script here. They're pretty much all the same too. Here, I'm going to go back a little bit. Let's go back to, all right, I'm sorry I have to do this to you, Paul, but I think I like the transmission better. Okay. So, here we go. So, here's the transmission control script. And there's your start, stop, status, configure. They're all relatively straightforward as far as what they do. So I'm assuming. So let's look at start. So, like for instance, the start method here, we do some daemon stuff, and then we start the fast CGI server listening on the IP address and port, and right here, this line here, this particular plugin also uses Django. Again, you can use anything you want though, but this uses Django, and this is where it starts Django, and then stop, same thing, do some cleanup and stop Django. Status, check whether we're up or not, simple, it just returns true or false. So then another aspect that a lot of these plugins do is they provide the etcrcd scripts for starting and stopping the binary, and all of them use that we have. All of them use a script called tweak rcconf, and that just modifies rcconf to say start daemon yes or start daemon no, and that's done from the control script as well. And here we have the UI for transmission, and this is just Django stuff. If you're familiar with Django, you have your URLs, your managed script, and settings, and that's just the stock Django stuff saying my app is located here, and in this case, the app's located in the FreeNAS directory. And inside of FreeNAS, so here's our FreeNAS, our transmission models. And this is just a representation of a transmission config file in Python. And here are the URLs that it exports, as I described earlier. So when the plugin starts, Django starts, and now all requests that are made to these particular URLs will invoke the Django function for each of those methods and return the results in JSON to the FreeNAS UI and get displayed. And I think we're probably good on that. Unless anybody want to see any of these other files? We'll go back there. Okay, so in conclusion, plugins are very powerful. You can do anything you want with them. You can make FreeNAS anything that you would like. So far, the neatest thing that I've seen as far as what people have done with FreeNAS and using plugins that they've made, as well as the ones we provide, is they've made their FreeNAS into a multimedia system. We've seen people that made, I think it's XBMC, and they made it into a multimedia system and attached it to their TV and do some cool stuff with that. I'm hoping that by giving this talk and paper that more developers become interested in FreeNAS and FreeNAS plugins. And more developers means more plugins means more users, and more users equals win. So, does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. So, you showed us the free plugins that I guess are shipping with it.
Yes.
What kind of plugins would you really like to see coming along next?
I don't know. Like, I'm probably, like most of you guys, just a lowly programmer, and all of that plugin stuff is, just fancy, gooey stuff that, is just out there. But for people that use FreeNAS and use it for storage or use it for home, so actually, honestly, I think more multimedia type plugins would be neat, because a lot of people want that functionality. They like seeing and using FreeNAS as multimedia center. Home users anyway, as far as like companies and businesses, that, maybe networking type plugins, monitoring, like Nagios, for instance, any, the possibilities are endless. Alex, how are you next?
So, actually, as soon as you speak about Nagios, it's one of the things I would like to see here myself. And the problem is that from inside the jail, it may be difficult or impossible to monitor some system parameters. So, is there some goals to make plugins be able to access system to run not inside the jail, but on the
Yes. So the question is the plugins, do we have plans to include the ability to access some of the system, aspects of the system not available to the jail? And the answer is yes. We currently have maybe 15 or 20 ad hoc system calls that are available via RPC to the plugin. Those might already do what you need, but if they don't, it's really easy to create new functions that are exported that you can access with RPC calls from the plugin. You can also mount file systems from the system inside of the jail as well. That's also available. But to answer your question, yes, that is something. If there's certain things that you need access to, you can submit a patch, you can put it on the mailing list, you can open a ticket, you work for us, Alex, you can tell us. So, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I was thinking more about like avoiding barriers instead of breaking them. So, is it possible just to turn off jail and live in native environment of the hostels?
Run the plugin inside of the host? Well, like we consider that at the beginning, but for various reasons, we decided to go with running it in jail because we didn't want to hose the system, because of a plugin. We wanted it sandboxed. So we don't have plans to run plugins inside of the base system now. Alan.
Do you have a central repository of the plugins that there are? Like, is there one place to look if I'm looking for plugins?
Currently, no. So on SourceForge, we have the 3. A couple of people have made them available, but that is in the works. We've got a guy that's been working on a central PBI repository for a while now. When that's going to be available is yet to be determined, but it's going to provide PBIs for FreeNAS, PFSense, and PCBSD. So that is coming, yes. Paul?
So similar to Alex's question, access to other devices than the ones that are usually visible inside the jail.
I'm sorry, can you?
Access to other devices that are usually visible in the jail. For instance, if you want to run something like a multimedia player, XBMC or so, you need access to the audio and other subsystems.
Okay, well, yeah, we mount like DevFS inside of the jail. You have them.
But you have to tweak some DevFS rules for the jail so that all the devices become visible and then maybe your video card and other stuff.
Yeah, so the question is audio devices and devices in general from the system being available in the jail. Right now, it's kind of outside of my mind. I forgot, but I haven't seen any problems with device accessibility within the jail. We mount DevS inside of it. As far as what's available, I do not recall, but I have seen multimedia plugins that work using audio and video that work just fine in the jail. I haven't seen anything where that doesn't work yet. But if it is broken, again, patches are welcome. You can open a ticket. We're a small community. We respond to tickets very fast for the most part, unless, yeah. Yes, we respond to tickets very fast. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for coming to my talk.